The fog is beginning to lift, but we're in the midst of what many would call a black swan event. Rare, unexpected, and deeply impactful. I know. Black swans are supposed to be unpredictable, right? So then, who's been warning? Us that one was just around the corner? That they're circling, waiting to strike? Well, we have. Since the beginning, we've been pointing to path number 3. Print money, trigger a recession, then inject more liquidity. And what just happened today? A surprise shock. Not the ultimate black swan, but definitely a preview. A smaller wave. Before the tsunami. Here's the kicker. Elon Musk just dropped a bomb, saying Trump's new tariffs will drag us into a recession by the back half of this year. That's a direct quote. Boom! The timeline is coming together perfectly. Let me break this down. The long-awaited recession is no longer a question of if, but when. And based on everything aligning, it looks like we're zeroing in on late 2025, September through December. My best guess? October. Historically, huge shocks hit in these months. Remember FTX? That collapse happened in November. Major geopolitical shifts? October. And September. Well, that month always seems to hold weight. This is exactly why the big players, the insiders, are quietly making moves behind the scenes. They're not waiting around. They're either cashing out or shifting into safer assets, hedging for what's coming. And now we've got a massive red flag, insider activity at NVIDIA. Mark Stevens, the guy who's been on NVIDIA's board since 2008 and is their second largest individual shareholder, just offloaded a whopping $150 million in shares. That's not pocket change. That's a warning shot. You've heard the phrase, follow the money. Well, guess what? The money is heading for the exits. Fast. And if the people on the inside are dumping while prices are still high, you better believe they're bracing for impact. This move is screaming one thing loud and clear. The markets are headed for a serious downturn in the second half of the year. Alright, here are the 3 main things I'm watching when it comes to XRP right now. First off, I believe XRP is going to bottom out before it hits a brand new all-time high. I get it. That might sound a bit out there, especially since it's been showing a bit of upward momentum lately. But zooming out to the 2-week chart, I'm seeing a pretty concerning signal that's just been activated. Now, for a real reversal to happen on these higher timeframes, certain conditions need to be met. And if you're wondering how to actually spot the bottom, here's how. Go into the daily charts, 2-day, 3-day, 4-day, even down to the 12-hour. You're looking for clear, confirmed bullish divergences across those timeframes. Right now, we don't have any of that confirmation. No divergences showing on the 2-day, 3-day, or 4-day yet. So until that shows up, we're not in liftoff mode. But here's where it gets interesting. All of this is still aligning with our macro timeline. Second half of the year. Sound familiar? That's exactly what we've been anticipating. A dip, followed by a rip. Think August, maybe September. Possibly a sharp decline first, then a parabolic rise. Nothing in crypto moves in a straight line, right? It always flows in cycles, waves. But based on what we're seeing, a big breakout fueled by massive money printing could definitely be on the horizon. Now, let's take a quick look at Bitcoin's setup. And not great news there either. Bitcoin is clinging onto key support levels. And what's interesting is that 2 major zones of interest are starting to intersect. That kind of convergence is something we really need to keep an eye on. So let's talk key support zones. Right now, Bitcoin is holding on to a critical level, somewhere in the 102K to 103K range. If that support fails to hold, things could get rough. The next major targets on the chart, we're looking at a drop toward 96K, possibly even 84K. So let's just say you really want to see some bullish movement soon, because if this doesn't bounce here, it's going to get ugly fast. Here's what's wild though. All of this is tying in perfectly with what we discussed earlier about the potential Black Swan event. The Bitcoin chart could follow a pattern that plays out just like this. First, a big drop, a fake out recovery, then a sharp move up. That recovery might actually be an SFP or swing failure pattern designed to trap liquidity and shake people out before another steep correction. Where to? Possibly back down to the 50K, 60K range. And then, boom! The money printers flip back on, liquidity floods in, and Bitcoin absolutely takes off. And when it happens, it'll be fast. Like blink and you miss it fast. This kind of move is built to fool the majority. If I were a market maker, that's exactly how I'd play it. Bait the pump, grab the liquidity, and then blast off. Here's where things get even weirder. If you pull up the unemployment data, yep, that's right, it lines up too. Once again, we're seeing everything point toward the second half of this year. End of year time frame. It's all syncing up across the board. This thing is probably gearing up for a massive breakout. And guess what? That kind of explosive move usually signals one thing. A recession is coming. Now here's the twist. A so-called insider, who turned out not to be much of one, just got exposed. James Nguyen has officially tapped out. He's closed every position and walked away with a lifetime P&L of negative $20 million. Yep, you heard that right. Minus $20 million. So much for insider knowledge. James Nguyen made a statement that really stood out. He said, "I tried to take them on, and I failed. I went head-to-head with the Bitcoin elites. No one's gone up against them like I have. Not at this level. God bless." And now? James Nguyen. James Nguyen. James Nguyen. He's asking the community for donations so he can try to climb back up. Basically, to do what's known as revenge trading. I've been there myself. When you take a big loss, there's this instinct to win it. All back to fight your way back to where you were. But that almost always ends in disaster. Why? Because your mindset is wrecked. You're trading emotionally, not logically. I went through the same spiral. One of the exchanges still holds over half of my XRP, locked away. I tried revenge trading to make it back, and I lost everything. Now, I'm literally starting over from scratch. So here's my challenge. James, if you're legit, if you're not just part of some orchestrated narrative or hidden agenda, send me what you've got left. I'll trade it back up. And no, I'm not touching Bitcoin. XRP is the play. The volatility on XRP is 3 times what Bitcoin offers. That means you don't need insane leverage. With 15x on XRP, you can do what 40x does on BTC, with less risk. But let's be real. If he doesn't respond to this offer, if he just keeps asking for donations without accountability, then yeah, it starts to look like this whole thing was just a publicity stunt, probably orchestrated by Hyperliquid for marketing purposes. That's honestly what I'm thinking too. Unless this whole thing is legit, and I mean truly legit, then yeah, it's probably all staged. But hey, I've lived through something similar, just on a smaller scale. And the truth is, I've cracked the formula. We've cracked the formula. If you really want to stack profits, if you want to run it up the right way, the smart way, I've got the blueprint. I'm not asking for much, just 20% of the gains we make, and we'll split the rest. Now, let's be real. James isn't going to take this offer. He won't even consider it. Why? Because he's most likely just a figurehead. A puppet for Hyperliquid exchange, used for exposure or some sort of campaign. But hey, James, if you're for real, if you're not just playing a role, hit me up, DM me, let's flip the script. Let's literally become the Robin Hood of crypto. But beyond all that, there's something else unfolding behind the scenes. And it's big. Russia's making major moves, and it's not just Elon Musk dropping recession bombs. There are serious external pressures building up globally, and now, out of nowhere, there's talk of a new, well, let's just say it feels like a 2020 rerun. Yep, again. They've got a whole arsenal of crisis cards ready to play. And it only takes one of them, just one, to trigger the recession we've all been expecting. They don't even need to try hard at this point. Pull the right card and the dominoes fall. It's practically scripted. Benjamin Cohen points out that if you study past post-election years where markets took a downturn, there are quite a few historical parallels, like in 1969, 1973, 1977, 1981, and even 2001. You'll notice a common thread running through all those previous years: major concerns around inflation and labor disruptions. Now, looking ahead to 2025, it seems we're lining up for a similar setup. In those past instances, the S&P 500 followed a predictable pattern: initial stability, followed by significant declines later in the year. So, if history repeats itself, we might be heading for a downturn sometime in Q3, possibly between September and November. That's the window to watch. I honestly believe a Black Swan event could emerge during that period. The signs are there, and everything seems to be building toward that same kind of late-year shakeup. That's just my personal take. I'm not really aiming to get into Elon Musk talk today, but let's be real. Tesla took a dive, and now we're seeing a broader slide across the board. This is where the sentiment turns super bearish. But here's the thing: now's not the time to go full bear mode. There's a massive pile of liquidity sitting there. You really think the market won't tap into that? Of course it will, eventually. Then comes the real test. Do we hold the current level and move higher, or does the market collapse before we get that big rally? What's wild is we actually talked about this scenario before, and it played out. Exactly. Bitcoin has now dropped 10% right after a golden cross showed up. We've said it before. Bitcoin tends to dip around 10% after that signal, and it did. People often dismiss the golden cross, and then it surges again. So is the signal. Still valid? It is, for now. But if the drop keeps going, we could be in real trouble. So, for now, the bulls are clinging to one thing: holding these current levels and bouncing back. If that doesn't happen, expect more downside. As for XRP, I'm watching those lower ranges closely. If the opportunity doesn't show up, that's fine. But I plan to go long if the setup's there. Hopefully, I catch that move, ride it up, short it at the top, and then long again all the way to $10, maybe even $20. That's the vision. Let's see how it plays out. Anyway, those are just my thoughts right now. The path ahead seems fairly obvious, but still, be cautious, stay sharp, and don't make reckless moves. None of this is financial advice. All right, that's it from me. Be ready for anything. Peace out.